What's up, everybody? So it looks like it's official. Zach Braff is going to join the Scrubs reboot that is in development right now at ABC. And now, normally, I've made videos about this, I've talked about this, or I'm kind of done with the reboots and the remakes and the reimaginings and all of that. Um, this is the exception to the rule. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. It is, I think, the funniest show of all time for my own, sensibilities. And it was one that I watched from beginning to end. I was a little bit late to the game. I think I caught on to it around season 4. But I continued all the way to the end, and there's an argument to be made that it could have continued to go on had the ratings, um, you know, not suffered because all of the main characters were basically gone. They tried to redo the show where now they're taking it back to medical school instead of following JD and Turk and Elliot and Dr. Cox and everybody. But man, I love this. I laughed out loud. And you also got to remember there's a little bit of context involved where this is a time where ER was a big hit. There was another show called Chicago Hope. House was a thing. There were a lot of medical shows at the time. And I remember even reading an article where, with so many shows going on, Grey's Anatomy was another one that was around, but feels like they've been around forever. Where they actually surveyed real doctors and they asked like, okay, so which of these shows are more accurate to your day-to-day life? And believe it or not, they actually said Scrubs. And I think that has just a lot to do with maybe the circumstances aren't exactly like that, but the ridiculousness and some of the humor that doctors inject throughout their career is what they connected to most. And I think everything that was happening in the show was like a heightened version of what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. But man, I love this show. Dr. Cox is one of my all-time favorite characters. His monologues, I mean, wow. John McGinley's monologues, how he would remember everything and just be so rapid fire with the delivery. I could never recite any of it, but anytime they started, I was just like locked in. I was like, okay, what kind of insanity is he going to express now? I still remember when there's a scene in this particular episode where JD walks into a room where they're doing x-rays and he says to Dr. Cox, your wife, that's the answer. And his response was, things that ruined my life, things that took half my money, things with sharp edges. Him playing like, the Jeopardy game. And it was just full of that. And it was so consistent, from beginning to end, even though like, okay, you grew to love these characters and they all went away by the last season. And so that was kind of difficult for the audience to accept new characters to fall in love with. Because I think Dr. Cox was the only one that remained by then. But as far as the humor is concerned, it was still as funny as it ever was. But, with any show, once you get rid of, most of the main characters, then it's going to suffer. Either way, I'm looking forward to see what they're going to put together this time around. I trust the humor is going to be exactly the same. And I look forward to seeing Dr. Cox make some large pronouncements with equally as fast delivery to those monologues. Anyways, what about you guys? Let me know what you think with the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow. Let me know what your favorite episode is or your favorite character. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.